Hi everyone. Did you know that almost 100% of people consider suicide at some point in their life? Yes, that's almost 100%. And so with everything that's in the news today, and today meaning recently, and also with the fact that mental health awareness is becoming more popular, more okay, more mainstream in the world, I think it's just important for us to really think about what is it about someone who is in that state of wanting to hurt themselves to the point of not living anymore that takes them away from their soul health. So, like I said, almost the research shows that almost 100% of people have considered it at one point in their lives, and it could be a fleeting thought, it could be something more serious, but the thing is, it is something that just shows how misaligned a person is. I was on a radio show on Monday night, and the host asked me, as a psychologist, what do you think is going on? As someone who talks about soul health, what do you think is going on? And my answer was, it depends for everybody. It really just depends. Yes, people get to that depth of being so misaligned with their lives that they don't feel like they have a way back. They don't have a guide to get them back. They don't know how to get themselves back into a place where they want to live. And my 2 cents on this is that, probably more than 2 cents on this after working with clients for over almost 30 some years, almost, is the whole idea that people don't want to stop living, or they just want to stop living how they are. So it's not that they want to die, it's just that they want to stop living how they are. And most people just feel so mired that they don't know how to get there. And so when we think about soul health, it is a constant process for us to navigate what is it that we need to do to live a more radiant life? What is it we need to do to line things up in a way that we feel happy to be alive and joyful and feel that vibrance and that radiance that we talk about when we talk about soul health? It's the whole idea of what is it that gets someone in the depths to that point where they feel like they have to take their own life. Now, from a statistical perspective, it is true that more men commit suicide than women, and that more women actually show suicidal gestures. And the thing is, most of the people who have someone who has suicided in their lives say that they either didn't see the major signs, or maybe they knew they were down and depressed, but they didn't think it was to that level. Well, having worked with people for this long, I just know that someone who is really serious about it is not likely to talk about it. And so that means it really is up to that person to take some charge of their lives and realize there are ways out. Now, I know this is sounding like a service, community service message, which it is. But we have to think about it from the perspective of how is it that we can constantly work on our soul health? How can we work on realigning? Now, I would be lying if I didn't say that I've had those times in my life too. And when I was a teenager, I was going through a really tough time, and it was one of those things where I never took steps to actually hurt myself, but it was one of those things where there are times when you just wish that, gosh, I remember for myself that I was just kind of praying to God, please take me over the night, take me so I don't have to go through this anymore. That's what goes on within a person who is at that depth, at that place of feeling like they can't go on, is that they feel desperate. They feel like they can't make it through whatever is going on in their lives, or they don't feel like they have the resources. They don't have the tools. Maybe they don't feel like they have the support. And a lot of this is the perception that they don't have it. Now, people don't realize that there are lots of other people that are going through pretty much the same things, if not a combination of similar things. But we keep everything held inside of us. And that's why it is such a stigma for people to talk about mental health these days. There's this stigma that it's not okay. Well, that's the human condition, folks. That is the depth that we go through. That is how we wrestle around with our stuff, is that it is the human condition. We all have it in one way or another. And so when we think about the Jeffrey Bourdains, when we think about the Kate Spades, when we think about the Robin Williams, or anybody else that we know that may have committed suicide or attempted suicide, we have to think about the fact that, number one, they are all human. They have the human condition going on for them. And number two is, we don't know what is going on for someone until we get into that world. And so there's lots of concepts about, is it selfish to commit suicide? Is it not selfish? Well, it is and it isn't. It's selfish because people get very self-absorbed. When we are hurting, we get very tucked into our own worlds. So we do get self-absorbed. Is it Is it one of those things where they don't have the tools? Well, some of them don't have the tools, some of them don't. But the whole thing is soul health is such an important part of any person's journey on this planet. 7.5 billion people on this planet, and all of us deal with the human condition. So I'm just feeling really compelled to bring this to awareness right now, given the recent suicides that have been in the news. And, you know, since the Robin Williams suicide, the stats are that basically suicide rates have risen 11 to 12%. Now, that you would think that there would be more mental health awareness. Well, there's also a lot more stress in the world. And I think that it's just time to really normalize the fact that we struggle with the human condition. That is what, we're all human. We're all human. We are dealing with this. And so how do we help someone? How do we reach out? How do, if we have a glimmer that maybe someone is struggling, what do we do? And really it's just reaching out and saying, hey, I'm concerned about you. Because sometimes that's all a person needs in order to feel, oh, wow, I'm not in this alone, or maybe I can lean on them a little bit. Number one thing to do, I know there are suicide hotlines out there, absolutely make use of those. And I would say the number one thing to do is reach out to someone that's close to you and basically say, hey, I'm not doing so well. I think I might need some support. Can you help me get some help with a doctor, or going into a mental health facility, whatever it might be. But it's that whole idea of reaching out for your soul health is such an important part of living. And we can't expect someone else to live our lives. We have to be the ones to take charge and have to be the ones to align our lives. We can't wait on someone else to do that. And I'm not lecturing those of you who are out there struggling with suicidal thoughts. I'm basically saying we have to take charge of our own lives. We have to realize that we do impact others one way or another. So I just really want to bring this into an awareness as far as from a soul health perspective. Our soul is our responsibility. So whether we're struggling with weight, whether we're struggling with self-esteem, whether we're struggling with things like to the depths of suicide, it is really up to us and our soul to say, wait, you know what, I can do this differently. And again, I'm not wanting this to sound like a lecture, but it is that whole idea of when someone asks me as a professional what I think about, you know, how people get to that point, it differs for everybody. And so it's one of those individual things because we all have very individual souls. And I think it's just very, very important for us to take charge and create this as a duty for us to be stewards to our souls. So anyway, I know this is a little bit more serious of a video than I usually do, but given everything that's going on, I think it's just really important for us to think about what is it that we need to do to be the best possible steward to our soul. If we're feeling down, or if we're feeling hopeless, or if we're feeling so dark, then what is it we can do that can just scratch the surface and get a little bit more light? And what is the one thing every day that we can do to help reach closer to our soul health? And so for those of you who are out there who want to know more about soul health, go to my website at www.Dr.KatherineT.Kelly.com. Look up the soul health model, because that will give you a roadmap to start to say, okay, which one of these branches needs a little help? What is it that needs a little time and energy today that can bring me a little bit more light and bring me more alignment in my life? Because it is a step-by-step process. And like I said, I have been there. When I was in my teens, I had a very dark period of life that got me to a place where I really considered not wanting to live anymore. And it was one of those things where I had to really look at what it was that I could do to step out of that darkness. And it was my darkness that helped me help other people through their own darkness as well. And so it is one thing at a time. It's one little step at a time that gets you beyond where that depth is. But in, you know, I use the word stewardship. When we are good stewards to our souls, then we get where we need to be. And the dark night of the soul, for anybody who has never heard that term, all of us on this planet go through at least one, probably multiple dark nights of the soul. And those are the times when we can learn the most about ourselves, if we can keep our head above water enough to say, what is this about? What am I supposed to be learning? So really important stuff to be talking about. I know this is again, like I said, a more serious video than I've done in a while, but such an important one, and such an important one to keep in mind given everything that we're seeing. And I'm guessing we may see some other reports of suicides coming up too, because unfortunately that does tend to stir more suicides, and we just need to raise that awareness, and we need to raise the fact that our emotional health is such an important part of our journey, and we can learn